Hello, and there we are again with a new episode of DanceGems. And today we are going to talk about concentration, attention, and focus. In short, you should can say CAF, but maybe it's a different order. Maybe it's attention, focus, and concentration. Who knows? We'll talk about all these things in this episode with my good friend and colleague Ton Greten. See if he's there. Hey Ton, are you there?
I'm there, Sean. Again, a nice subject.
Yeah, it's a broad subject. You mentioned it a while ago. And then what I typically do is first I'm always going to check a little bit what do I know myself about it, and then I start to inform myself. It's interesting thing. In normal layman, we call it layman terms, right? Normal layman terms, we use these words like they're the same very often, right? But of course there is, not of course, but in this case actually there is a pretty distinct difference between attention, focus and concentration.
Yeah, absolutely, Sean.
And then of course we're going to make the bridge of what has that all to do with dance. But in fact, if you understand how this works in your normal life, dance is part of normal life too, maybe, then you could use that maybe into your benefits when you study dance.
Did you say normal life, Sean?
Yeah, I said it. When I said it, I already corrected it myself. Tried to correct myself because
Our daily life, eh?
our daily life, our just life,
Y-
just
Just
life,
like, yeah,
just
just
life.
like in our life, yes,
Yeah, yeah, good
exactly.
catch, good catch. I was hoping that you didn't hear it, but you did.
I did.
It's an
Yes,
internal
yes.
joke. And if you go back actually to one of our earlier episodes of Dance Jams, then you hear Ton and me always trying to talk about subjective and objective words. And normal is very subjective. Doesn't mean that we can never use the word normal life, of course. But
Of
when
course.
when Ton and I do that, then we try to always catch each other on on those kind of words. So a little bit of an internal joke, but it has a deeper meaning, and I would definitely go back to that episode of objective and subjective words, specifically when we teach why at least we believe that it is important to use as much as you can objective word and steer away from subjective word. While
Yeah.
subjective words have a meaning, of course, too in life, but that's a whole different thing. Right? Today we're
Yes.
going to talk about attention, focus,
Mhm.
and concentration.
Yes. There, it's holistic at first. So you need all three of them: the concentration, the attention, and the focus, or the attention, focus, concentration. We will come later back how we see it differently, because all three you need. But also you need your senses, your five senses. If you, it's also necessary for them, because to keep the attention. And why is this so important for dancing? If you want to develop in a later stage, this is one of the puzzle pieces where you need to make the complete picture for dancing.
Yeah, no, in every learning situation or every life situation, you could almost say you need that you need attention. So I said it before, attention is maybe the foundation to all human cognitive processes. Attention is the foundation to all, and it actually one definition could be that it is an active process to how do you say that, to tune out other things so that you actually stay a little bit around it. Now I'm trying to have my attention to this podcast, but that doesn't mean that there are not other things around me. Now I can close the door, for instance, and then I close out the outside, and then now I hear that you don't have that you are on mute. You are on mute, my friend.
Correct, Sean, correct. And I hear some sounds in your studio, so my attention goes also to the sounds there in the
Yeah,
studio.
yeah,
And and my partner is screaming in the hall, screaming. So my attention goes also to that one, but Sean, probably you don't can hear it. But this is when you are, say, when you could look to us, I could give first the attention and more in the focus detailed to the brand what Sean has on his shirt. So actually, I would see it more like now we start with that attention, but once when we are in it, you need concentration inside the attention. So if I look to the square, I would see this as a concentration. Then the attention goes to the shirt of Sean, the training suit, and the focus would go to the brand of it.
Yeah.
So it goes smaller then. But first of all, we cannot start with concentration because when you go into your lesson or you go to the choreographer and you get a new piece, first you are attent there and slowly you get in the process. But the attention of the choreographer is first in the subject. And then for a longer period, you will come in the concentration, but the choreographer can switch from one point to another point. That's attention. And when you are really precise in it, then you are more focused in it. That's how we see it. And I can speak for Sean, or at least how I see it.
Yeah, I don't see it much different, but I would say when you have your attention and then you focus on a more specific aspect, you give the attention to how I look, but you focused more on my brand here. I'm pointing it if you're not looking at it, but I have a brand on my left chest here. And then if I ask you, can you keep focusing on it? You have to concentrate to do that.
Yeah, exactly,
So
Sean.
so you have
Exactly.
to concentrate to do that. So that's actually almost like you rule out more distractions in your mind to focus only on that point. The interesting thing is about when you shift, then you go almost automatically into your concentration. That's literally trying to filter out all the distractions that are not helpful in what you're trying to do. That could be another definition of concentration. And it develops that taps into another side of your brain. Your attention has sits on another side of your brain than full concentration. Concentration, you need to halt and integrate the information. Basically, you activate the long term memory. You commit things too long. Attention, you don't need long to that's short-term memory. It's another way of looking at it, because when you drive a car you don't have to remember all the cars that are passing you, but you need to have attention for it. But if
Yeah.
you give me a task, if you say, for instance, Jean, when you drive to the studio, I want you to count how many white cars, then I need to concentrate car one, car two, car three. So I have my attention with the driving, but I can concentrate how many cars,
Yeah.
white cars.
That, that was a nice one, Sean. So you switch your attention from car to car, and then
Concentrate on
you
the
need to
numbers of
be
cars.
concentrated. Yeah,
Yeah.
but inside the concentration, you switch from car to car, and if you want to see the details more from that car, you are more focused. So then you could say that the concentration is more time orientated. The attention would be more space orientated, and the focus would be more space-time orientated.
Yeah. Yeah. I could say also that focus is literally more directive, right?
Yeah,
You change your direction to a specific location. Huh? And
that's the attention,
yeah,
Sean. Yes.
if I zoom in, that's I focus it to a specific.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, zoom in.
But
If I
but still
change it
in the
completely, if I change it completely, then it would be attention.
yeah, but still when I would look to your brand, then I'm focused on your brand. But if I want to switch my attention to one of the letters, then I even more specific.
Yeah, but it's still a space, of course.
Yes, of
Spatial,
course.
yeah. So still a spatial aspect. Yeah, yeah. I like that attention. You could do a lot. You need to have. You can be so concentrated that you that you also lose all safety around you, like driving a car. You've been so concentrated on your phone that you lose the attention that you need to drive your car, which you lose part of your proprioception.
Yes, yes. And they call it, they have a word for it, cognitive overload. You are driving and then suddenly you didn't know where you was driving, but you drove to point B where you want to be, and you forgot the way where I was during my way. And sometimes I have that also. I go to my refrigerator and I want to take some drinks there, and I forgot. I walked to the refrigerator, but I forgot what I wanted to drink. Or
Yeah,
even I didn't walk to the
or why
refrigerator.
did you walk to the refrigerator in the first place? Eh?
Yeah, yes, exactly, Sean. Yeah.
Concentration has a lot to do with committing things to your memory. So you often have that, right? If you walk in and you put your key somewhere, you did do these things without any concentration, and that's why you don't know where you put your key. Yeah, and so concentration has a lot to do with it has actually to do with what we call your working memory. That's not even your long-term memory. Uh,
No. So can you repeat that from concentration, which part of the brain you use, the attention, which part, and the focus, Sean?
so
Because my attention wasn't there.
yeah, so the concentration is in your working memory of your brain, which is a little bit deeper in your brain. And all the other things that comes at you is, I believe, man, I'm not a specialist, but it's your front side of your brain is where you very all these quicker things. But the moment you need to concentrate, focus, you start to tap into different areas of the brain. With from a neuroscience point of view, it's not like you don't use the other part anymore. Eh? Like Ton already actually demonstrated, you can keep your attention. You go a little bit, but I still keep my focus on the podcast. But I hear someone coming to the garage, so my attention was a little bit away while I try to concentrate. And that's so then there are multiple things going on in your brain. If that's too much, you get a lot of things go wrong. By the way, if it's too much distraction, why is also a skill. Huh? You have this. I know this surgeon. His name is William, and he's a surgeon of veins. He has an incredible ability to concentrate for a very long time on a very precise little area that he focuses on. Very special. And I asked him these things, not in these words, because we were not busy with this. But the way for him to do that is that once in a while he puts his attention somewhere else for a moment, and then he goes back into it.
Yes, something really important, Sean, because the CAF, you need also as a person, when you are in your lessons, you need, how I can say, your senses as
Yeah.
a person. Because if you not use your eyes, your ears, and the brain is not a sense, because that's actually your captain on the ship, also from that body. So for a lesson, I would say, actually, I said the five senses you need: tasting, smelling. They are also important in a lesson, but the more higher ones, looking and listening, they are the higher ones, what you need, and feeling also from inside, what you feel with it, what you think with it, with your brain. And if you can keep the focus, or actually all these four focus points, you cannot keep them at the same time. But what I would recommend, I would first recommend my students to listen the podcast internal and external perceiver, with the interoception and the exoreception, with the proprioception. Sorry guys, no, probably I lost you, I hope not. But the proprioception is your awareness of your body and of your own property. That's the body. But the brain keep that awareness to that body, and there are one unity. So this you need during your lessons or choreography or whatever you do in your life. You need that. And if you sometimes my children are turning in the lessons, or they're busy with their fingers or with their clothing. And Sean said already in the Dutch podcast, that's also a part of concentration.
Could be, yeah.
Well, yeah, could be.
Could be.
Yes. I remember when I was young, I turned always in the lesson, Sean. But actually, I missed a lot also of the lessons because I was busy with my turns instead of watching or listening to my trainer or coach or choreographer. And also, when his attention is to my turns, will be also disturbed by my turning, could be, and the people around could be also disturbed. And now, the actual point, what I want to say, for every person, it's different to concentrate, attention, and focus because each person is different. How he thinks, how he feels, how he acts. And so some person they have a focus or a attention point, I can't
Yeah.
better tell that, for 1 minute, and the other one for 5 seconds. So that's, and also some people they can, when they are in the flow, they can concentrate for 2 hours because they are in a certain flow. And other people, they constantly disturbed and they cannot get in that concentration. So it's really for person to person, it's that different. But you can train it. That's the nice things about it.
You can
Because
train it.
what, yeah.
Yeah, and we, of course, can help our students also by if we notice, for instance, that like myself, I learn a lot through listening and reading, but that doesn't mean that I should not also learn from things to watch, right? Specifically in dance. So my dance teacher could say something like, "Hey, I'm going to demonstrate something right now," so that I know that I have to look at him. And that's a lot more positive that you say you have to look at me, because then I'm more busy with the looking instead of really seeing it, right? So as teachers, we can also help our students. And I gave the example a little bit of Ton, who was always turning around, but maybe that's a way for him to listen better. But if I would say, "Hey, Ton, I'm going to demonstrate now something," and then, or I say, "Hey, let's have the attention now in front of the class," then it's a little bit more friendly than saying, "You have to look at me because I'm demonstrating something." So that's one thing. But what I notice, because I talk a lot, I noticed it from myself, and sometimes it feels that my tasks are not so clear. They can be, and that doesn't help with the focus. If I say,
Mhm.
"Hey, you have to look at my jacket, and if you can discover if there is something on me," and that's different than I say, "Hey, I want you to look on my left side. There is a brand. Can you describe that?" It's very precise. I have very, and that helps people to focus. The other assignment could have a goal too, but it doesn't help students to focus. So we can help in the way we talk as teachers, help students to focus by making sure that we have one understanding. That's why Ton and I made a podcast about how important words are. One, there's only one definition in what we say, and that helps them to focus and
Yeah.
hence keep the concentration longer going on that specific topic. Another thing, Ton, that we didn't discuss in the Dutch podcast is if we cannot convey why what we ask them is important for them and they don't feel the importance of it, it's also very hard to focus on things that you don't believe is important for you.
Oh, yes, absolutely, Sean.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yes. When it's closed in your brain, it's closed. And
yeah,
when it's open, so open your brain. But I can imagine that it's sometimes also something for yourself to protect yourself, to close your brain.
sure,
And
of course, yeah,
yeah. But coming back, actually, the see it as a light. The concentration is quite wide lining from a spotlight, wide. The attention, I would say, goes to different directions in the lightning, and the focus would be narrow that lightning from that attention. And what to start first with the lesson, I would start with the attention, with the lightning, and then the concentration will build up, and then you narrow the attention again to a focus. And the same we do in the period when we are concentrated or work before already, so we have already a muscle memory. It's not a nice word, but to turn, so we don't give the feet attention anymore and the body because it goes automatically, but the focus of the spotting, that's sometimes it's a point where we can work on it, also the feet or vice versa, and then you put the focus on your feet or the focus on your spotting, and so it gets more narrow, but still you switch in the attention from the feet to the eyes, from spotting. And spotting is the head is standing still more, not the head, and you look so long as possible to one point, and then the head will switch quite fast.
Yeah, that's good. That requires a lot of focus and concentration.
Yes, all three, Sean. Huh?
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah. So that's where we actually use the word focus a lot, right? When we ask people to turn. So we cannot escape that we sometimes use the word with different meaning. But yeah,
yes,
spotting, yeah, the word spotting, but you have to look at that spot and
yeah,
return to it at
to
that
that.
same spot. Yeah, same spot. So that helps if you first focus on the spot and put it in your head and then turn and then find that back in your head.
Yes,
Yeah. So I was also thinking about, man, there are so many distractions that we could have, right? Your fellow students, your phone. We talked about that. Someone that just comes in the classroom without having any business there. It's not always easy to keep your concentration.
no, no, not at all. Because when I'm in a lesson and I try to get that steps or movements, and somebody start to speak with me, and I don't want to speak, I want to keep my concentration in that attention where I was, but they bring me off track. And then I'm off track, and suddenly I think, why you bring me off track? To give I want to stay in my concentration where I was. You take me totally out. And then I feel also the environment around me, the other students, they get also out of it.
Oh yeah,
Some they
of
can
course.
some they can stay in it, but it get hard when somebody then also come into the door and everybody looks to it, and the one who comes into the door say hello everybody, and there, and you try to stay in that subject, and the other one is speaking, and then the doors goes open. That needs a lot of
Yeah.
training to stay in that. You have to be more selfish. You have to say yes to yourself and no to the rest.
Yeah, you have to be myself. And I particularly know it's maybe one of the not so good things in my character, but I get very annoyed if people just disturb lessons without reason. I get very quickly annoyed. Not a good character, but the other thing that I noticed in that, if a disturbance happens in class anyhow, I would just always stop it for a moment and give that attention and then bring it back to the class, and that works better than the way how my nature works. So I get very quickly annoyed if someone disturbs the lesson, but it helps. I call it the barking dog, right? When the dog barks, better give it a little bit of attention because it's already disturbed anything already. So if I give it a little bit attention, also for myself, then I go back. If not, if I try to ignore the sound, then actually it stays a disturbance. But if I give it a little bit of attention, oh, it's just a dog, and I bring it back. So that's one of the techniques that you could do. Now,
I did something special, Sean, now. My students come now into the room. So my studio is next to the dancing studio, my
yeah,
record studio here. And I put now my headphone on
yeah,
with noise cancelling because they are screaming now. You cannot hear it in the mic, but
well,
I
I
can
hear
hear
it.
that.
No, I can
You
hear
hear
it.
it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can
So
hear
I
it a
put
little
now,
bit. No, it's not.
now I said to them, please be more quiet.
Quite. Yeah,
But they are so enthusiastic
yeah,
that they are still busy. This is why I put my headphone on it to be not disturbed and to stay in my concentration now to
yeah,
build on.
yeah,
So my attention goes first to them. I come back and now I'm there and it still takes a little while that I'm really focused. But why is this so important? Because also our podcast is important for the education, also for myself. I developed through all the information what Sean gives to me and vice versa, but also our students when they use our podcast and want to be more in the CAF, concentration, attention, focus. I call it as a word, but we can switch it around. And once you know that it works together holistic with the senses and also with more things, then you could develop more faster. So get more selfish and get more, say more yes to yourself. Because at first you do something because you like it, that's the most important,
yeah,
but also that you get in so less as possible time, so much as possible do time, and so much as possible, yeah, development time.
yeah. So but I do realize, Tom, that when I grew up, we had way less distractions than we have it now. Right now, there are so many distractions around us. We have specifically the electronic devices and the things that we see that you notice this. So that for kids, on one hand, it's harder to concentrate, but they also are sometimes a little bit more trained to concentrate because they are more used to the distractions than typically I am. I should be used by it now. But yeah, for younger kids growing up right now, there are so many distractions that they have, specifically from the electronics. Now, on one hand, that could be our vision, right? The elderly vision, because the elderly vision, because do know that they grow up in this. They might be actually be able to concentrate through all that noise, where for us it's a lot of commercials and there's a lot of electronics. It's relatively new for us. But because I see that even in my kids, they how quickly they can end type on their phone and and so they grow up in a different environment. We have to understand that too. Try to understand at least the child's mind. But I still believe, Ton, what you said in the Dutch podcast. It's so if kids know how to concentrate in their form the best way possible, we gave them the best learning possibility. Whether they learn from it in the end is their own choice too, but that's why we try to do that. And so we brought in
how
a yeah.
how you call pre-knowledge, Sean, in English again? The knowledge what you get before. What is the English word for it?
I don't know what you mean with pre-knowledge.
Knowledge, because I give them knowledge before.
Yeah.
For I give them context. And I give them context before, that's a wrong word, pre-knowledge, but I give them context about the senses, internal and external perceiver. We did a podcast about it, sensory perceiver, external. And I repeat that many times. And then I repeat also the CAF and also other small details, what the development can bring them to a positive point. But if they not have that knowledge, they do the habit what they had before, like
Ah,
they
that's
did
what you mean.
always.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, yeah, definitely. If you don't
practice,
huh?
practice.
No, no,
Prejudice.
not that. That would be not a. That's a negative word.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
Ah,
prejudice.
okay.
Yeah, prejudice
Yep.
is having an opinion about something.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, that's not what you meant there.
Wrong
But
word.
I know what you mean. Let's call it pre-knowledge. And
Yeah, pre-knowledge.
if they don't have that, then they can only react from what they know. So
Mhm.
if they don't hear about what we say about attention, focus, and concentration, if we don't let them know about what the difference is between proprioception and intro and exteroception, then once they get more used to that, they put themselves also in that learning environment. We do another podcast around muscle memory, but if they don't know about muscle exploration and muscle manipulation, there's no way to blame them that they want to use also the teachers around it that they say, hey, muscle memory is a good thing, of course,
Yeah,
because you didn't know the other things. Yeah.
yes. What I realize, Sean, is when I them explain nothing and I just do the lesson, they can just only follow. So then there are concentration
Yeah.
to imitate what I'm doing as a front person in a choreography, and they try to do it then. They
Yeah.
imitate me. But if I give them the knowledge, it's probably a longer road. Not many people would do that. I assume that. To give that knowledge first on young children, because we start immediately with doing, but then they get only a follower. And maybe on the long term, when they gain more information step by step, they will get a creator. But I try to make them immediately a creator, not immediately, it's not possible, but to give them
Quickly.
already pre-knowledge, and through the pre-knowledge they can make, through the options they have, they can make a choice. And even through the terminology we understand each other now much more faster. And then I hope the investment what I did before in the knowledge, and of course by repeating that knowledge and then by doing, then it gets shorter term to have to repeat always that knowledge. Then we go to the doing, and then I need to say only two words, and I understand immediately the external sensory perceiver when I would say that, and they would understand that terminology. That makes it more interesting as a creator, also for them. That's how I see it. Can you? I hope you can follow me.
No, I can follow you, but I can see that there are different modalities for different
Yeah,
situations, of course. The way we learn is the first way we learn is always through mimicking. Everyone
yeah, yeah,
learns everything, whether it's talking, whether it's walking, whether it's behaving. That's why even the movements that we make when we're young look exactly like our parents. Over time
yeah,
we maybe do that, but I know I'm totally with you. Sometimes if you give more context or pre-knowledge first, that they do it first. Typically if I have a new group and I warm them up, I don't say anything. I just put on music and I just move and then see if they follow. Some people just stay and they don't know what to do. Other people start to immediately mimic. I think it's an interesting process to watch, to say, hey, you're in a dance class, and first lesson I just put on music and I just move and see what they do with it. I'm okay if they do something completely different. I didn't say you have to follow
mm,
me. And then bit by bit, I'm starting to explain the words that we use. One way to learn is to follow and then to mimic. And so we do that. But in the end, what you and I try to do, time is limited, no matter how we look at it. If we can find a way to to make the learning more concentrated and shorter, we would do a good service to our student.
yes, absolutely. But I realize for myself that's the longer way and the more challenging way to explain them that and to repeat it always. And what I didn't tell you, Sean, some of them in the Netherlands, in the Dutch schools, we have the 0 is the lowest point and 10 is the highest one. I don't know what this in America is
We
or in England.
ABCD, EF.
AB,
So A is the highest and F is the lowest.
Yes. Say they were on D first, and now they are on C, because I repeated many times the external sensory perceiver, and how you perceive the world and information, and I explain them the CAF, the concentration attention focus, or the attention focus concentration. And since I did that, they have go from 5, they go to a 7 or even to a 8. And I was really impressed. I was so proud of myself. So actually, I have a benefit from it in the dancing class, and they have a benefit on their schools. That's quite wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, I say no, for sure. It works. Hopefully they learn something in school that they can use in the dance class too. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
We can only hope.
Sometimes one of my students did in the lower degree. She's 11 years old. I don't know in which class you are then. She did proprioception, interoception, and exteroception. And the teacher thought that she was kidding because she never heard about these words. And the 11 years old child in my lesson explained her what it was. And at the first moment, she didn't believe that these were real words. That was so funny. And after a while, she gave a great compliment on it. And I was also again flying through the air, and I was proud of myself that I could bring a child of 11 years in this terminology on a higher or on a wider scale and deeper scale.
Yeah, no, I am with you. I think maybe, I mean, there's no stopping. Eh? Why would we not teach this to younger kids and teach it to? And so it's also when I started to dance, it's much later that I heard things about dynamics and changes and all this kind of stuff. Or and now I very quickly talk about it on the level of the students. Obviously, we don't have to say complex things, but sometimes, yeah, we think, oh no, I cannot teach you this because you are not on the right level yet. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I hear this many times, and I assume not everybody is like that, but that's really a punch in the face,
yeah.
something like that.
That's so horrible
Yeah,
to say. Of course, we teach
yeah.
on the level of the person, but we don't have to point out, oh, basically what you say, oh, you're not good enough yet. And
Or
that
you just started. Mm.
Yeah, yeah, and of course we cannot immediately teach someone 10 spin turns is their first lesson. But if they have a question about turns, there's a lot we can tell them. We don't have to dismiss them. Oh yeah, you're not ready for that yet.
Yeah, but what I feel is only that terminology, what I explain to my young children, is only in my studio. So in the environment of them on the school and in a home situation, they don't use these words at all, like symmetry or asymmetry. If we go a little bit off track, but also in the concentration, attention, and focus, I explain my children why it's so important for the development in the lessons to get in a higher, to grow actually, and to learn. And then I asked your teacher on school what it is. And the teacher on school said to one of the girls, I don't have time for it now. And I said to her, ask her again and ask when she could explain it to her in a different space where she has space to it. I said, next week I'm busy with something else. That was the answer. Okay. Then I thought,
Yeah.
not so
Well,
important.
no, of course, you and I use very specific words, but that no mean we have any proof that no one else does that. Yeah, we have no proof of that. Plus, these words, most of these words are some, but most of these words were already existing. So
Yes.
proprioception is, of course, a very known word in most people who are busy with dance. Although when I walked around in the ballroom world, I thought, hey, who does know this thing? That's weird. So maybe it was coming more from a martial arts way. I don't know. I have no idea. But these words were already existing, so there must be environments where these words are used.
And
Same
the anatomy,
more in
Sean.
anatomy. And then, of course, one of my students he's a mathematician. The moment I use symmetry, asymmetry, it clicks for her immediately. She's used to that word in a
Mm.
different context, but she can relate it to this. Yeah,
Yeah,
whether we
okay.
what we brought together, Ton, is unique or not for me, even that is not so relevant. What I do
No.
know, what I think was one of our most for me, most significant podcast is the precision of words. If we use words, try to stick to the same meaning. And sometimes Ton and I need to have a few conversations to say, hey, before we committed to the method, let's discuss it first. And then we have to make a choice because otherwise we cannot teach the same method and then have a different. And then we say, oh, it's according to what we teach here. This is what we mean with this word, even if we started
Yeah.
from a slightly different point. And I always think, Ton, talking about attention, focus, and concentration, I think that's an incredibly important process because now we are going to literally concentrate on what is the meaning that we want to give with a focused goal to what we want to teach students. We don't leave it there. We can have different opinions,
Oh,
obviously, but when we say it needs to go to in the method, then we want to be agreeing on the definition.
yes.
Because I don't want to say, yeah, but Ton wrote that, but this is what I mean with it. No, this is not, this is what we, and that I think that is pretty unique, to be honest. To be honest,
Yes,
having many students,
absolutely.
I think that's unique.
Absolutely, Sean.
And that requires time
And,
and enthusiasm because we are always on
and,
fire of the same things.
and motivation, Sean. And
Oh,
consistency.
system, but yeah,
Consistency.
and the heart. You need to have heart for it too. You have the emotions,
Yes.
but which is one of the things that sometimes, yeah, can bring us in the concentration, right? If Tons tells something like, "Oh my,
Yeah.
I always wanted to hear that," he's going to explain us how to make
Mm.
two turns instead of one turn, but it could also be
Yes.
a demotivator. It's like, oh, I was always bad in turning, and now and to do that, to see that
That's
is,
fixed in your head.
yeah, that's fixing your head. It is, but it has all to
Mm.
do with what we talk about. If you know your
Yes.
distractions, we didn't talk about that in the Dutch podcast, but if you know your preconceptions, that was the word we were looking for, preconception.
Yeah.
If we know our own preconceptions, it always comes together, Tom. If we know our preconception, then I also know from myself what distracts me. If I only want to listen, do I agree with Tom says or not? I'm already distracted. I'm not
Yeah.
concentrating. And if I try to disapprove him, then my attention is already going like, how can I?
Yeah. As as a choreographer and teacher sometimes, and we say a trainer and a coach sometimes. So it would be nice if my students would understand these words because the terminology understandment will go more in a faster way or in a shorter period. And if I would go to a group where I never was, sometimes you not get the duration to explain it. You have to start immediately. And then I must be so clever that I'm let them doing instead of explaining. So I have to find a way to get immediately in doing. And this is a challenge for me also because I'm also the guy who wants to explain that the brain, when the brain is understand, the body can do it more. But if you want to explain it, it takes a certain duration to your students there to explain it. So it depends on how much time you have. But when I go to doing, they can only follow me. And there is a little bit space or room for to explain. but not too much. If you have 45 minutes or half hour of teaching or 1 hour, then it's bang, it's suddenly it's gone. So I'm not there only to entertain them, but I want that they're taking something with them. And why it's so important? Because actually we educate ourselves, not only in the dance studio, but also in daily life on school. And there is no difference in it. Only on daily life in school you sit maybe the whole time, exceptly in Finland, because in Finland they have after 40 minutes or half hour every time 10 minutes or 15 minutes break, and then they go to the next class. So they have a different school system. And now in the Netherlands, slowly they're also changing the school system, more practical in the beginning in our town, and then later theory. So they do it first around, first practic, and then the theory. That's also modality. What also it's okay. And what nice would be also when I'm teacher in the front of them, because I am also an external sensory perceiver of my students. And my students, they are the external sensory perceiver of me. And when they are disturbed in their CAF, in their concentration, attention, focus, or attention, focus, CAF, you can do that also vice versa, then the lesson is not so effective. You will lose always information. And when you have also noise on it, noise, I mean your students next to you, or somebody comes into the door, it has always influence on the quality of the lesson.
Oh, for sure.
And yeah, and I want actually, because I know I'm as a teacher, choreographer, coach, I am responsible to give directions in their life. And I'm fully responsible for that hour, what I want to give them in their life, not only in that 1 hour. And that's if they have longer time to work with you, like a year or 2 years, that's a different story than even only 1 hour. That's completely different.
Yeah, it's completely different. But knowing that an hour is just a building block of a year long teaching. So every
Yeah.
building block that we create, hopefully it has the same quality and intention to them. And I think students notice that. And it's also you need to know yourself, Tom. I am not the best if it comes to social dancing teaching, which is just an hour entertainment for people. They want to move a little bit. It's not that they don't
A
want to
little bit
learn.
at the surface.
Yeah, it's
At the
not that they
surface,
don't
a
want to
little bit.
learn, but that's not their intention. Their intention is literally, I'm just come here to pass time. I want to have a little bit of a good time. It's they might say they want to learn dance, but it's not like that's not the way we think about that. So I had to
Mhm.
learn that here when I started to social classes. Oh man, I had a really hard time, and until I understand, okay, but then I can make a choice. Do I want to do that? It's different. It's
Mhm.
a whole different meaning. And those people, but it's in the same topic. If I talk too much to those people, they lose concentration. They cannot keep the attention with me because it's not to their
No,
interest. But I talk to my
correct.
higher level students, they want to hear the knowledge. They because that helps them. They understand what you said. Knowledge is the precursor of the doing in on a higher
Yes.
level. And yeah, that's part two. And I get annoyed if I cannot explain, but I have to learn that too, to be honest. I'm like you. I
Yes,
love to
actually.
explain, but I have to learn also the other side to cater to all the students. Now I
Yeah.
made a decision. I am not an entertainer. That's not my thing.
Mhm.
I will do it maybe once a week or so, but that's it.
M- My point of falling, I call it like that now,
Yeah.
a strange word, is to talk too long. But this is why we have that podcast where we
Yeah.
can talk 1 hour about it.
Yeah, that's good.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Without any
yeah,
interruption.
yeah. with any interruption and put our passion to the microphone. And
Yeah, that's well said.
yes,
That lighten my
yes,
day.
yes. And Sean, we to develop and to grow, we have the first step. You attend. You have already the motivation to attend.
Yeah.
Then you get the attention first, and then you set something from over. You can explain that?
Yeah, so but that's of course that's a Dutch I think, but I will translate it very quickly in English. So in Dutch we say over, and then I use some Dutch words. So if you're not a Dutch listener, you might think that I talk some gibberish. But O stands for orientation, so we can translate it. The V stands for explore. No, not for. Yeah, exploration. I want to say exploration. I want to say it correctly. So that would be OE. And then the U stands for the doing, so the execution. And then the R stands for reflection, looking back on what you did and talk through it with your students and with your teacher. And that actually makes you learn. Not only one of the two, not only doing, not only
No.
orienting, not only reflecting, not only that it's the combination going through that cycle a few times
Mhm.
helps you. And
Yes, and so you have that one. So you have the attention, you have the doing and the over in it, and you have the development then in so particular areas. Oh, and you have then you learn then, and then you grow. But you need for all you need the CAF,
yeah,
the
you need all.
concentration, attention, focus. That's the overviewing for that one. And if you want to learn and to be ready, this is why you have to warm up your body, that your blood stream from the heart pumping go through the body, but also through the brain, because through the brain, a 3/4 liter. I don't know how much this is in the American size, but three quarter of a liter goes through the brain every minute. And if you warm up and you want to study and to be in the concentration, attention, focus, then your brain is more there immediately, and your body also, because it's not sleeping anymore. And sleeping, to speak about sleeping, that's also quite important to have a good rest with a particular food pattern, and all these small puzzle pieces together give the point of change and to break your habits.
Yeah.
And there are more points in it, actually, much more points. But this we do for a different podcast, Sean. Or you want to add something
No,
more?
I had this thought about sleeping, right? Because in the Dutch podcast we said how important it is for being able to do CAF or attention focus and concentration is to sleep well. It's one of the most important things to do. You could also translate it. Yeah, you can also translate it in a different way, Ton, is if you don't use one, the other one is not necessary. What I mean, if you don't use your attention, focus, concentration to an optimum, why would your body wants to rest? Why would your brain wants to rest in sleep? So you use it well, you automatically sleep better. Does that make sense? Because you give it
Yes.
reason to rest. You need to always. We had another podcast about opposites, but you use the opposite. So some people say, "Hey, but I don't sleep well." I said, "Do you use your brains enough? Do you?" No, because I am tired. Okay, see now, then you get in this what we call a vicious cycle. You don't use it enough, you're too tired to use it, and then you don't sleep enough. So you need to break that and do exercise like Ton said. Do exercises for attention, focus, and concentration. Your brain gets tired, guess what? Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, do all these things, and it automatically wants to find a time where we start to rest, which then restores yourself to be
Mm.
able to do the other thing again.
Yes. How you call that? To touch your
Tapping.
body,
Yeah,
hit your body. How you
tapping.
call that? Tapping your body, that activate also your proprioception, but
Yeah,
also tapping the brain,
yeah.
but also
Remember
tapping the chin.
what I did
Yes.
tapping
Yes. Yes.
to concentrate. And there are
Yeah.
actually, we have whole trauma ways to help people through trauma just by tapping. Fascinating.
That's what, yeah,
Fascinating.
that's what athletics people, sports people doing that for a competition. They
Tap. Yeah. So it's a whole.
tap their body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's another podcast, another thing that I don't talk so much, but it is definitely fascinating knowledge that we can use. But Ton,
Yeah.
you need to go to your students. I know that. And we did an hour again, slightly different angle than in the Dutch podcast. So if you can listen to both, that would be fantastic. But if not, then we'll hope you definitely to see you the next time. This was Dance Gems. Today we talked about attention, focus, and concentration. Or if you want to have a nice little word for it to remember it, you can say CAF, concentration, attention, focus. And with that, we say we'll see you next time at a new episode of Dance Gems. Ton, I'm going to start the music. And yep,
Goodbye.
and we say
Till next
goodbye.
time.
Of course, I'm going to tell you always, as always, where you can find us. Spotify, Dance-Gems, Apple Dance-Gems, YouTube, at Ton Greten/podcast. And we are also on www.jam.dance/podcast, our own website. And we have a Facebook group, is groups/the Dance Gems. And with that, I say to you, bye-bye, Ton.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.